Hello everyone. Let's Alexis would like to pass a message saying a huge thank you for the response of Leeds' chapter last week. He would also want you to like this video, and he also gives you a big welcome to anyone new on this channel and encourages you to subscribe. He would like you to try and hit 150 subscribers within 3 weeks, which I think, as the storyteller, is possible. Enough of Alexis, it's the storyteller here, and I'm here to tell you the story of the first association football club in this eternal book, Rochdale AFC. We've talked about 2 championship standard teams. We're now talking about a team currently in the 3rd division in this modern age. Tell me, what club would you like to be featured in chapter 4 of Football Fairy Tales? Please comment your suggestions in the comments below. Without any further ado, let's start chapter 3 of Football Fairy Tales. So, we need to have a flashback to chapter 2. When Gilbert Gillies was sacked by Leeds City, another football club was in development. A town in Greater Manchester formed a new football club called Rochdale AFC. They were formed in 1907. However, it took them after World War I to apply for the Football League, where they eventually did apply in 1920. When they did apply in 1920, that was then they were able to move into their new home, Spotland Stadium. Before then, they were playing in the Lancashire Combination Division 2, until they got promoted in 1909 to 1910. After 2 years in Division 1, they competed in the Central League, not finishing higher than 10th place. When they applied for the Football League in 1920, they unfortunately were not accepted, which that feeling of not being accepted is something that Alexis can relate to. Luckily for them, they were recommended to be in the 3rd Division North. Their first manager ever was Billy Bradshaw in 1920. He only ever managed 1 game though, which was a defeat. Rochdale played their first league game in the 3rd Division North ever against Accrington Stanley on the 27th of August 1921, and they managed to win 6-3 in the end. Unfortunately, they couldn't build from that result, and they finished bottom of the league in their debut season, forcing them to reapply for a membership in this league. Luckily for them, they managed to keep their place in the league. Rochdale as a club have unfortunately not won any honours, but they have come close in the earlier years. In the first 6 years, Rochdale finished runners-up of the 3rd Division North twice in 1924 and in 1927. The club spent 32 years in that division, but unfortunately, they were eventually relegated in 1958 and 1959 when they finished rock bottom in the league. They spent throughout the 60s in the 4th division. It was a very low point at the time. But the only shining light in that decade is that they managed to reach the League Cup final for the first time in 1962. Tony Collins, their manager at the time, managed to steer that club to the League Cup final. This was also on record the first time that the club from the bottom league division had reached the final of a major competition. However, they could not win it at the end, unfortunately losing to Norwich City. The 60s end on a positive note though, where the club earned its first ever promotion. This was earned by a team largely assembled by manager Bob Stokoe. But Len Ritchie, Stokoe's assistant, has to take a lot of the credit after Stokoe managed to be tempted by a move to manage Carlisle United in the following division. In the early stages of their debut season in the 3rd division, 69-70, Rochdale topped Division 3 table, sparking hopes of a second successive promotion. However, the team's form really declined around Christmas, and failing to control that decline, Ritchie was sacked. He was then succeeded by Dick Connor, who then stabilised the club's form and managed to get them to a 9th place finish, which was respectable. For the following 3 seasons, the club finished in the lower half of the Division 3 table, not really pushing to be promoted anytime soon, narrowly avoiding relegation each time. The board thought that the current situation of a club only just being able to survive was deemed unacceptable and wanting to push the club for bigger success. They replaced Connor with Walter Joyce from the 1973-74 season. This move failed to pay off though, and it was an absolute mistake because Rochdale were relegated rock bottom once again, only winning 2 out of 46 league games, which on the whole is very, very embarrassing. Unfortunately, the club continued to decline. The club finished bottom of the league in the 4th division in the 1977-78 season. However, they were successful in their bid for re-election, but Rochdale finished bottom once again in the 4th division in 1979-1980. They were very perilously close for losing their place in the league. However, they were re-elected only by 1 vote ahead of the club aspiring to join the league, Altrincham. So luckily for Rochdale, they kept their place in the Football League. Throughout the 80s, the club failed to reach any higher than 12th place in Division 4. But there was a nice end to the decade where the club reached the furthest they did in the FA Cup in their history, reaching to the 5th round where they eventually lost 3-1 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Throughout the 90s, the club improved steadily, but still did not look like getting promoted. It needed a change of personnel to try and change the club. Then the arrival of Keith Hill came around. He, without a doubt, is Rochdale's most successful manager. Initially appointed as a caretaker manager in December 2006, Hill, plus his assistant David Fieldcroft, led Rochdale to a 5th place finish in Division 4 in 2007-08. This secured a playoff place. They beat Darlington in the playoff semi-final 5-4 on penalties. Rochdale therefore managed to make it to Wembley for the first time in their history, only a couple of years later when Barnsley reached Wembley for the first time in their history, which is quite remarkable. Despite taking the lead in this match, they lost 3-2 in the final against Stockport County. The following season, the club finished in the playoffs again. They have to thank Adam Lafondra for being Rochdale's top goal scorer in those 2 seasons. He went on to do greater things, especially with Reading. Unfortunately, they lost in the playoff semi-final, losing to Gillingham. But 2010 will always be a year to remember for Rochdale, where they were promoted to League One, where they finished in the final automatic promotion spot in 3rd place with a win over Northampton. This was the kind of high that Rochdale needed to try and improve and to strive for great things. Rochdale continued their progression under Keith Hill, now in the club within 4 years. They finished 9th in this debut season in League One with 68 points, equaling their highest ever league finish since 1970. However, following this success, Keith Hill was tempted to manage Chapter 1 club, Barnsley Football Club. He eventually managed to take that division to manage Barnsley. I didn't go into too much details with Keith Hill's time as management for Barnsley because it wasn't a very fun time for him. In fact, it was a turbulent time for him. He narrowly avoided relegation from the Championship in his first season and was sacked a year later following deteriorating results. Within a year of Keith Hill leaving Rochdale, the club were immediately relegated to League 2, finishing rock bottom. But 2 years later, where Keith Hill returned to Rochdale, the club was promoted to League 1 once again, finishing 3rd place once again after beating Cheltenham Town, where he 2-0 to confirm their promotion. Scott Hogan was the top scorer for Rochdale that season. Obviously now he's doing bits with Birmingham City. The 2014-15 season was the club's most successful season yet. Apart from a couple of games, they remained in the top half for all of the season, eventually finishing in 8th place, their highest league placing ever in their history. 2 seasons later though, Rochdale finished in respectable places in 10th and 9th, but unfortunately since 2017 their form has deteriorated and stayed up on the final day of the league in 2017-18 where they secured a 1-0 home victory versus Charlton. Last season they finished 16th place, and within that time Keith Hill was sacked after 6 years since his return, now being replaced by Brian Barry Murphy. We now look at this season where they are 19th place and 4 points above the relegation zone. To analyse the club, it looks like they have fallen short on the potential success they could have had with the youthful talent that they did have in their disposal. However, staying in League 1 for this long is great for the club. They now need to rebuild and potentially a more experienced manager to try and take the club into new heights, hopefully to the Championship very, very soon. They need to follow their destiny and strive to reach new heights. With that mindset, the club will only have good things in the future. Good luck to you, Rochdale AFC. And that concludes chapter 3 of Football Fairy Tales. Since chapter 2 was so long, you guys deserve a shorter chapter today. James, I hope I done you proud doing Rochdale as chapter 3. But please, everyone watching this video, tell me what club do you want to see in chapter 4. Comment down what club you want the storyteller to read about next. I'm really enjoying looking back at the different histories of our beautiful British football clubs, and I hope to continue this series for as long as I can. But to continue this series and to continue the motivation, giving this video a like would be tremendously appreciated, and with anyone new there, subscribing to the channel will also be deeply appreciated. And please share this series and this video and this channel to as many people as you can. All of that would really make my day. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. As Alexis would say, you guys are legendary if you listen to the end of his voice book. And as always, stay safe, keep healthy, and take care. Peace.